All right, all right. Welcome, welcome. Make sure this is right. Tricks of the Trade is starting soon. We're going to be talking about the DMG. I'm going to be streaming the DMG, the new DMG, the 2024 DMG, and we're going to go through all of it, or at least like this will be part one of going through all the DMG. And I'll give you my takes on what I think is really awesome about it, what I think is missing, and what I think would make it better, or like my own homebrew take on some things. Yeah. Let's see here. My mic is going. Okay, cool. All right. Let's just jump into this. All right, let's see if this works. Boom. There's the DMG. We got it. Okay, so you can see the image here. This is already a badass image starting off. It's got a portal coming out of the DM side of the DM screen, and it's got a giant castle on the other side of the game. This is what you aspire to be as a DM. This is what you aspire to have. I mean, some people have this in a gigantic library, a full 2-story library with a ladder you can use. It has an actual magical portal with what looks to be some type of beholder creature, some miniatures, dice, a couple structures there, a whole bunch of notes, and then like a maze of dungeons in the middle area. And then what looked to be like music stands for the players to have their sheets on. That's rad. Okay, that's cool. I don't have that, but that's a good goal to work towards. Let's keep going. Okay. Okay, the DM gets to play many fun roles. Actor, the DM plays the monsters, choosing their actions and rolling dice for their attacks. The DM also plays all the people the characters meet. As an actor, you don't need to be an actor to do this, though. Again, like, acting is not the most difficult thing in the world. It does take skill, but honestly, this is the last of these things you need to be. Director, like director of a movie, the DM decides and describes what the player's characters encounter in the course of an adventure. The DM is also responsible for the pace of a play session and for creating situations that facilitate fun. Director is more of what you are, I would say. Much more of a director. I would call being a DM is more like being a butler with bad news. A butler with continuous, perpetual bad news. Just handing their employer letter after letter with bad news. Improviser. You're definitely an improviser doing this. A big part of being DM is deciding how to apply the rules as you go and imagining the consequences of the character's actions in a way that will make the game fun for everyone. You are definitely an improviser. There's no getting around that. No matter how much you prepare, you will be improvising something. Referee. When it's not clear what ought to happen next, the DM decides how to apply the rules. You are a referee. You are a referee with DM fiat, which means you can change the rules as you go. But I wouldn't recommend doing that all the time. But you can. The game runs by DM fiat, but we'll talk about that later. Storyteller. The DM crafts adventures, setting situations in front of the characters that entice them to explore and interact with the game world. I would call this a story guider, but I love storyteller. We're all storytellers, right? Everyone at the table is a storyteller. The DM is a story guider. Teacher. It's often DM's job to teach new players how to play the game. Yes, I would say everyone's a teacher as well. Everyone's job is to help facilitate the rules and help each other out. It's not just your job as a DM to know all the rules and no one else has to know them. Everyone should help out. World builder. The DM creates a world where the game's adventures take place. If you're using a published setting, you get to make it yours. That is true. World builder is absolutely true. This makes it think like you have to create a world. You do not have to create a world. I would say setting builder is probably the better, or maybe not setting builder. Region builder. I don't know. World setter. World builder makes it seem like you have to build it, but you don't. You really don't. I don't recommend it, actually. I don't recommend building an entire world. Don't take that literally. That's what I'm saying. Embrace the shared story. I'll go a little faster with these. Embrace the shared story. It's not a competition. That's a big one. Be fair and flexible. Yes, indeed. Don't have favorites. Communicate with your players. Absolutely. It's okay to make mistakes. That's a big one. What up? What up, Sensei? I got some questions too. I'll get to those questions in a little bit. It's okay to make mistakes. Yes, absolutely. If you're DMing, it is perfectly fine to make any and all mistakes. It's also okay to ask your players for help with the rules. So, I don't know where that happened, where it became a thing that you have to know it. You don't. You can ask your players for any assistance you need. You're already doing 18 other things. What's new in the 2024 version? Okay, they're doing my work for me. Great. Sound advice. Every chapter, but especially chapters 1, 2, 4, and 5, have new advice for Dungeon Masters of all experience levels. Cool. Tracking sheets. Keep track of your campaign. These sheets are also available for download and append at C. Very cool. There's also some help for keeping track of what kind of players your players are. Are they the actor type? Are they the planner type? Are they the role player? Are they just the mechanical optimizer? Knowing what your players' desires are can really help you, especially with a live game where you are talking directly to them, and they're real people and they're right in front of you. Encounter building assistance. The rules for estimating the difficulty of combat encounters have changed, as you'll see in Chapter 4. Interesting. Well, some of this I have not read. This is a big book, so I haven't read a lot of this. Ready-made elements. Sample adventures in Chapter 4, a camping setting in Chapter 5, and new maps in Appendix B make it easier to run a game right away. I didn't know that. There are adventures in Chapter 4. Okay. There's a question about the art, so we'll talk about that. Expanded and revised magic items. Chapter 7 is packed with new magic items and old ones that have been revised. I've seen a lot of the new magic items. A lot of them are really, really cool. But honestly, there isn't too many. It's more of a reorganization of the ones they have. Bastions. Chapter 8 has rules that allow player characters to build, maintain, and enjoy their own strongholds. I'm not sure if I'm going to go into Bastions because I have my own ideas, and I don't want them spoiled for the next campaign of Mossdale. Lore glossary. Cool. Okay, we all know this. This is very basic stuff. Where do you find players? Yes. Cool. Yes, we know this. Dice. Oh, of course. There are the dice. Tracking sheets. Very cool. Okay. Chapter 5 is tracking sheets. Okay. All right. Some DMs use a battle grid and miniatures to run combat encounters. So something I noticed is that the DMG here is not written for grid combat. It's written for theater of the mind. You might use grid combat. It's basically not writing it for grid combat. If you happen to use it, great. It's not exactly explicitly supporting grid combat. So there's a much more general theater of the mind position that the book has taken, which there are pros and cons to that. I would much rather they take a grid combat approach, but I understand what they've done. I'm a little dark. There we go. Much better. What up, everybody? We've got some viewers. Hello. Okay, we all know this. Preparation time. Okay, we all know this. Oh, they give you if you have 1 hour preparation, if you have 2 hour preparation, and if you have 3 hour preparation. Very cool. All right. Okay, cool. That's useful. The art is very cool. If you don't know who this is Zuchtmoy. So Zuggtmoy. I will say she is she is in Mossdale. This is the demon lord of fungi. The demon queen of fungi cultivates her fungal gardens. You can carefully cultivate a vibrantly growing campaign. Yeah, Zuggtmoy is one of my favorite characters in the D&D landscape. It's pretty awesome. Also, one of the chief antagonists of, oh god, what is it? Oh man, Temple of Elemental Evil, the video game, which I sort of recommend, but really they ran out of time. And if you play that game, you'll see what I mean. The end of the game just kind of drops off. They legitimately ran out of time and published it. Anyway, or if not published, they sent it out, released it. Okay, recap. What's it say for recap? How to run a session. Start each game session that refers to the recap of what happened in the previous session. A recap helps players get back into the story. It also provides important information to players who missed the previous session. You can provide this recap, or you can invite one or more players to deliver the recap instead. Good. Yes. That is the exact advice you should give. Either you do it, or you let your players do it. Fantastic. Provide the recap yourself if you have specific information you need to impart, or if you want the recap to be concise and focus on what's relevant. Let the players provide the recap if you want to gauge what they think is important or learn more about what they're getting out of the game. Exactly. It's not just about hearing what they know. It's about learning what they know and using that to work with what you need to put in the game, or work with what you don't need to put in the game. What they are telling you are the things that have the most impact. So you can learn a lot from that. If the players miss any important details in the recap, you can interject a reminder. Absolutely. Okay. These are all pretty good. These are pretty basic here. I want to get down to example play. We know this. Let's go to the next chapter. Every DM is unique. Yes, we are all unique. Yes. Ooh, here we go. Play style. Oh, first let me go to these questions. Hold on a second. I'm doing too many things. 1 second. I love the DMG artwork. Let's just post this right here. Oh no, my chat's gone. How do I get to my chat? Here we go. I love the DMG artwork pays homage to D&D villains of old. Are they also included in the book's adventures? We will find out when we get to chapter 4. I imagine they are. The artwork is incredible. It's some of my favorite artwork to be in that has been published so far. I like it a lot better than the 2014 version. There's just something to it. There's it feels much more organic. I don't know. I like it a lot more. And then another question is, is there an area of the rules that you were hoping would receive some attention that didn't? Okay, so TLDR for the 2024 version versus the 2014 version. The 2024 version is bigger. It is a lot bigger. But words have been cut. It has been simplified. Literally, words have been cut. We're gonna go over how spells differentiate themselves, or how they're different from the 2024 version from the 2014 version. The big thing is a lot of things have been cut. A lot of language, a lot of unnecessary words, a lot of repetitive things. They've just kind of cut the fat. But it's bigger because they're covering more. There's more coverage, less crunch. There's a lot less rules in this DMG than in the 2014 DMG, which seems weird, seems counterintuitive, but they're going for a different feel here. They're trying to help out dungeon masters who are new to the game and don't want to be bombarded with rule after rule. It's more of a vibe thing. But they do try to cover more because they know that the 2014 missed a lot of areas. I would say the one place that is missed here is an area of the rules that you were hoping would receive some attention that didn't. The big thing that I missed from 2014 is a small thing, is that they didn't price magic items, and they still haven't priced magic items. If anything, they kind of they just kind of gave it even less attention. That's okay though, because other people have done the work and priced them for you. And so I figured out how I basically know what magic items are worth, and I can figure it out. I can even figure out the new ones, but I'm not using the 2024 pricing system. It's too broad. It's just way too broad. Basing things on kind of a WoW system or any other game system where there are yellow items, orange items, red items, purple items, blue items. It's kind of what they're going for. They're going for colorization in their items. It's not crunchy enough. And some things get misplaced. Like, there's no reason that a broom of flying should be an uncommon item, but it is. And it still is for some reason. Anyway, that's my tangent. I think that's my tangent on what I think is missing. I think they need to do the crunch work on some things that absolutely need the crunch work, and they didn't do it on the things I wanted. But again, TLDR, there's more coverage. So they fixed a lot of the problems that were hurting a lot of DMs, and they did more coverage on a whole lot more areas. So that's exciting. And weapon masteries are very cool, but that's in the player's handbook. Okay. Playstyle. Does the game focus on combat, hack and slash, or immersive role-playing? Does the game focus on combat and action, or on a rich story with detailed NPCs? Hopefully you have both, right? All ages or mature themes? Is the game for all ages, or does it involve mature themes? Mature themes is a very broad subject. It can mean a lot of things. Sometimes I wish we had I wish we can crunchify that question, because like mature for a lot of people means like nudity, extreme violence, or like horrifically dark themes. It means something to everybody. It means something different to everybody. So that can mean a lot. Sometimes for my one-shots, I want to make them mature, but I don't want that to say the wrong thing. In any event, it's more complicated than just that. Gritty or cinematic? Do you prefer gritty realism, or are you more focused on making the game feel cinematic and super heroic? This game is not a gritty game. So if you're playing default D&D, it's not gritty. There are rules in here that can make it more gritty. I'm interested in looking at those, of what they've done to make it gritty healing and gritty. I don't know what they've changed there. I'll have to look at that. But the default D&D experience is very much super heroic, medieval style high fantasy. Serious or silly? Do you want to maintain a serious tone, or is the humor your goal? Yes. Yes to that. Pre-plan or improvise? Do you like plan thoroughly, or do you prefer to improvise? You're going to do both, hopefully. General or thematic? Is the game a mixture of themes and genres, or does it center on a particular theme or a genre such as horror? Man, I recommend doing both there. I recommend taking a theme and then working stuff around that one. Yeah. For example, like the theme of Azure Sky is adventure and treasure finding, and the theme of Sirocco is loss and depravity, and also like horrifically bad luck. Dealing with an almost absurd amount of obstacles. So like bad luck, obstacles, a storm, a constant storm. And then the theme of Mossdale is, well, it's a work in progress, isn't it? Morally ambiguous or heroic? Are you comfortable with moral ambiguity, such as allowing characters to explore whether the ends justify the means? Or are you happy with straightforward heroic principles such as justice, sacrifice, and helping the downtrodden? This is good. I would say, if you're doing the morally ambiguous route, you're going to run into more problems as a DM. Life is already too morally ambiguous for a lot of different reasons. So a lot of people, I would say a majority of people, jump into at least 5e in order to do the latter as opposed to the former. They want heroic as opposed to morally ambiguous. You at least need to have morally unambiguous villains in your campaign. Whatever campaign you're making, one of the factions needs to be morally unambiguous. Morally unambiguously bad. Yes. House rules. Yes, indeed. Put them in. Atmosphere. Yes. Cool soundtracks from movies or video games. Yes. Delegation. Ooh, this is a good one. If there are any parts of the game you prefer not to handle yourself, assign them to players who enjoy them. Yes. If you don't want to break your narrative stride by looking up a rule, designate another player to be the rulebook reference expert, the rules lawyer. Yes, indeed. If you don't like tracking initiative, ask another player to do so. Yes, there's no reason why you can't just start siphoning off these things. Let other people help out. Yes. If anybody has any questions while we're doing this, put them in the chat. I will try. I can look and do both. Learning by observing. Okay, this is all good. Oh, they talk about 3 pillars here. Okay. How much of the session was taken up by combat, exploration, or social interaction? A problem with this is that some players see this, some would-be DMs see this, and they think it needs to be 33% combat, 33% exploration, and 33% social interaction. It's not going to be that. It's never going to be that clean. So don't even worry about that. You can have sessions where there's no combat, and usually in like urban environments where it's just talkies with figuring out what factions are doing what. You can have some sessions that are just combat. Having just sessions that are exploration is tough, but you can definitely have some where there's more exploration. I'm trying to work more of that in. I'm trying to highlight the exploration combat in my campaign preparation going forward. That's my goal. That's my goal for myself for Mossdale. Put more exploration into the game. It's tough with Roll20 because Roll20 has limitations to it, but you can still do it. My advice is focus on exploration because combat and social interaction will take care of themselves. If you have role players at the table, they will take care of social interaction. If you have any NPCs with any motivations or goals, just give them something. Social interaction will be taken care of. Combat will be taken care of. Just put some bad guys. It will be taken care of. Exploration needs help. You need to put some focus on exploration. Okay. Mutual respect. Good. Oh, here we go. Okay. Let's see. Before you assemble a group around the game table, pitch the adventures you're thinking about running to your prospective players. Note the in-world conflicts that might arise, the setting's overall tone, and the themes you'd like to explore. The Every DM is Unique section early in this chapter helps you describe your game to others. Telling players to expect prepares them as they imagine what sorts of characters they could create and launches conversations about content to be embraced and avoided. Yes, indeed. This is all about session 0, and some of these are like safety tools, which I think is so rad. So, this is cool. This is a good sheet for it. Game expectations. DM name, player name, game theme and flavor. Potentially sensitive elements. Examples, spiders. Spiders is the first one, guys. It really is, though. Spiders, snakes, demons, romance, mind control. Yep. Those are them in descending order of what comes up with safety expectations. Yep. Yeah. I would say mind control is a big one. It really is. Especially like with this next campaign I'm making, it's a lot to do with the Feywild. You're going to run into more mind control, right? You're going to run into more dominance and subjugation, not just with the physicality of your characters, but with their literal mind, how they're feeling. There's a lot of that. So that's an element. That's something you need. That's an expectation you need to set. Hard limit, don't mention or include. Soft limit, handle with care or off camera. Off cameras is such an underused thing that DMs need to do. I use it on like torture, like heavy torture. I'm like, okay, we can fade to black on this. I know what's happening. You've made your rolls. The goblin you have tied up is screaming. We'll fade to black on what is happening here. But you can that's a soft limit, meaning like it's in the game, but you don't have to. We're not here to describe all of it. A hard limit means you just don't put it in your game. There are some things I never put in my sexual abuse. I don't put it in my game. It's too much. Yes. Player hopes and expectations. What do you want to see in this campaign? Cool. At the table concerns. Shouting, swearing, alcohol, sharing dice. So shouting, swearing, alcohol, those are all things I do. Sharing dice, I didn't know this was a thing. I guess it is a thing. Some players are very superstitious about not sharing dice. So, that's a thing. Talk about that. Are you sharing dice? Usually it's a thing, you just share them, but a lot of players, I imagine, don't like to give up their dice. It is possible to lose your dice a lot when playing a live game, so that is a concern. So you can have this in a game expectation sheet. Again, this is an option. You don't have to do it this way. You can be more informal, but this is here if you want to do it. If you're a DM who wants to put limits and have X cards for these things, put them in your game. Okay, cool. Let's see. Communicating limits. Let's see. These are more on expectations, limits in play. This is useful if you need it. Intra-party conflict. Oh boy. Let's talk about this. This can come up in a lot of live games. I've usually done things to get away from this type of thing. I promise you, there's a good 10% of the player base that I have learned I'm just never going to play with them because there are some problems here. Disruptive player. A player is exhibiting antisocial behavior in the game. How to deal with this covered in the antisocial behavior section. Oh, okay. All right. Player conflict. Conflicts between characters sometimes surface conflicts between players. Yes, indeed. These conflicts are best handled away from the gaming table. Yep. I encourage the players to resolve their conflict outside the game. If that conflict keeps rising in the game table, you might need to ask them to step away from the campaign for a while or leave the game entirely. Good. Say the thing that needs to be said. Sometimes it just ain't working, man. Sometimes one or two people gotta go. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're the DM and you're the problem. You're like, I can't do this right now. I'm not in a good mood and it's affecting things, right? That's okay. It's okay to be self-reflective and notice that you might be the problem. Conflicts between characters aren't always bad. It's okay for characters and players to disagree about how to deal with a captured enemy, on which side to back in a brewing war. If the disagreement gets too heated, take a break and perhaps discuss out of character how the players would like to proceed. Yep. If you can't tell which of these dynamics is in play, have a conversation with the players about it. Cool. Let's go into this. Oh, this is a good one. I remember reading this. Okay. Do you really do that? Can players retract what they just said their characters did? Some DMs take the hardline position, if you said it, your character did it. Such a strict position tends to make players much more careful about what they say, which can dampen the atmosphere and discourage humor. I agree with that, meaning I try not to say that. I try not to say, if you said it, your character did it. I do try to ask, do you really do that? Because it does set a tone, like, what you just said might have consequences. Do you really do that? Other DMs let players change their minds freely. This creates a more relaxed mood at the table, which might slow the pace of the game. This is good. They're telling you this creates a more relaxed mood, which I agree with, and I think it should happen, but it does slow the pace of the game down. When you ask, more questions like that, that's a negative that's going to happen. A common compromise is to rule that players can retract or change anything their characters did up to the point they learn the consequences of their actions. Yes. And this is big. This is also like a pragmatic, like mechanical thing. This is why there's such a huge difference between the old Lucky Feet versus the new Lucky Feet. The old Lucky Feet was a re-roll mechanic where you can see the consequences and re-roll it, whereas the new Lucky Feet is nerfed. It is an advantage roll you make before you even roll. Which is so this is a good point. This is a good point to make mechanically, because if you see a consequence and it changes what you would do, that might be seen. That might just be cheating. So we want to get away from that. So I agree with this. This is a good compromise. As a DM, don't play favorites. Yep, you don't want to play favorites. Don't do that. I agree. Sometimes you don't encounter players who tell other players what their characters should do, claim the best magic items for themselves, bully the other players, and refuse to share the spotlight. Oh yes. Oh yes. Um, oh, this is interesting. Tragic limits. Some players resist getting invested in the world of the game because they don't want to endure the pain of seeing the people and places they care about threatened or destroyed. Whoa, I never thought about it that way. Other players gleefully detail a backstory full of beloved NPCs, fully expecting the DM to use those people as bait, tragic victims, and unexpected villains. It's important to understand your players' preferences so that you neither alienate the players by callously destroying what they love, nor bore them by leaving their backstory out of the campaign story. Oof. There's a lot in this. When you have antagonists threaten the people and places that characters love, be sure the characters have a chance to stave off the worst outcome. That's good. During the game, characters should have the opportunity to avoid or mitigate losses in heroic ways, with tragedy being a consequence of the character's actions and decisions, not a foregone conclusion. Moments of helplessness in the face of devastating tragedy are better suited for character backstories. Love it. Love it. This is all good advice. DM die rolling. I feel that there's so much more to this than there was in the 2014. This is so much more robust. This is like a much better conversational, much more detailed into the vibe of being a DM rather than what we had in 2014. This is really great. DM die rolling. Should you hide your die rolls behind a DM screen, or should you roll your dice in the open for all the players to see? Choose either approach and be consistent. Each approach has benefits. Hidden die rolls. Hiding your die rolls keeps them mysterious and allows you to alter results if you want to. For example, you can ignore a critical hit to save a character's life. Don't alter die rolls too often, though, and never let the players know when you fudge a die roll. Visible die rolls. Rolling dice in the open demonstrates impartiality. You're not fudging rolls to the character's benefit or detriment. Even if you usually roll behind a screen, it can be fun to make an especially dramatic roll where everyone can see it. I recommend all your rolls, 99% of your rolls, to just be visible. I know it's scary, I know it's crazy, but I highly recommend it. It makes a much more impactful game. It makes a much more tense and dramatic game. If you're rolling behind the screen, you cannot get away from a player thinking, oh, he's just fudging. The DM is just fudging the dice. I know, as a player, when I see a DM roll behind the screen, I always feel like someone's lying to me, even though that's probably not the case. Because if you're rolling behind a screen, at least 90% of the time, you're just taking what the dice say, because it's just easier and quicker. But there's always a chance that you just fudge it, so you never know as a player. Overly cautious players. Overly cautious players can slow the game down by checking every flagstone door and wall in the dungeon for traps and hidden dangers. Sometimes behavior is a learned response to too many unpleasant surprises in past adventures, and sometimes it's just a manifestation of player personalities. Here are some in-game techniques you can use to encourage your players to act boldly. Avoid random perils. Avoid traps and ambushes that feel random and have little importance to the rest of the adventure. Create time pressure. Set up a situation where the characters are racing towards a goal or destination. Use this technique with caution, as time pressure can increase players' anxiety. Telegraph encounters. Give players advance warning that an encounter is imminent. Maybe they hear the heavy footfalls of a giant and see the dragon flying overhead before they have to confront it. This can encourage your players to move toward or away from the encounters rather than anxiously anticipating an ambush. Yes to all this. Create time pressure is a good way. There's a lot of talk I've heard about, like, perception investigation. The take 20 rule, I have to see if that's in this book, or if it's in any of the books, the player's guide or the DM's guide. I don't see it, so I'm not sure if they're using it anymore. I'm not sure if passives are a thing anymore. I need to go check on that. If anybody knows if passives are still a rule, please let me know. Let me know if it's still set up the same way. If, like, passive perception and passive investigation and passive insight are still things. Okay. We all know the social contract. Well, let's talk about social contract. This is good. Players should roll dice in front of everyone. Yes. When a dice rolls on the floor, do you count or re-roll it? I do not count it. Roll it for everyone to see it. When it's cocked, re-roll it. Social contract. You must provide reasonable, appealing reasons for characters to undertake the adventures you prepare. In this exchange, the players should go along with these hooks. It's okay for your players to give you some pushback on why their characters should want to do what you're asking them to do, but it's not okay for them to invalidate the hard work you've done preparing the adventure by willfully going in a different direction. Yes, indeed. There are limits to a map, right? There are literal 4 sides to a map, and there are 4 sides to an adventure. If you're going outside of those adventures, you might be being rude. You're probably being rude to the DM. So that's just a talk you need to have with your DM. 9 times out of 10, if I'm playing with a DM, they've probably said, I only have this prepared. This is what we're doing, or we just can't play. And as players, literally 99% of the time, as players, you're like, yeah, okay, let's do it. It's not a problem. You just do it. You're just happy that there's some content for you to play. Let's see. Oh, character knowledge. Okay. Encourage players to play their characters with limits of what the characters know and understand. It can be helpful to maintain the distinction between player and character knowledge by simply asking players, what do your characters think? Ooh, that's good. That's good. I need to put that more in. Yeah, I need to integrate that. Anachronistic thinking is another potential pitfall. You might need to remind players that the characters don't know how to make things that don't exist in the game world, such as modern firearms or antibiotics, and they don't have the player's understanding of modern science, which might not apply in the game universe anyway. Similarly, sometimes a player is familiar with the published adventure you're running or knows the monster manual backward and forward. Encourage the player to keep that knowledge separate from the character's knowledge and allow the other players to discover it through play. Yes to that. I would also say you might not want to use that knowledge because it might be different than the monsters that I as a DM might put in the game, because I homebrew stuff, and if you think a monster is vulnerable to acid, whatever, and then you find out that it's resistant, don't come crying to me. You use knowledge outside of the game, right? But anachronistic thinking is interesting because, when we get to like puzzles is a big one. When you get to puzzles inside of a game, you really are challenging the players and not the player characters. I mean, it's okay for your player character to use their skills, or as a player to use their character's skills and what the character would know to try and tackle the puzzle. But really with puzzles or anything outside of the main game, you're challenging the players. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to challenge like a modern mindset inside a high fantasy game. That's what we're doing. So it's slightly anachronistic, but yes. This is up to the DM and how much you want to use here. I'm okay with some of this, but what do your characters think is a good thing to use? It's definitely a good thing to use. Antisocial behavior, okay. Evil characters, yes. Oh, evil characters, okay. Players who want to play evil characters might be looking to carry out antisocial behavior in the game. If a player asks for permission to play an evil character and comes to the table with one already made, talk to the player about what they have in mind and make sure the plans square with the group's expectations for your game. Yep. Sometimes a player wants to explore playing an evil character for perfectly good and non-disruptive reasons, and sometimes a whole group decides it might be fun to play evil characters together. These are valid options as long as everyone's on the same page about how the campaign will go. Yep. Just know there's a lot of pitfalls with evil characters. A lot. So your reasons should be very specific. Players exploiting the rules. This is a big one. This is my favorite part of this so far. I'm so happy with this. We will do this, and we'll probably end with all of Chapter 1. Let's see. Some players enjoy poring over the D&D rules and looking for optimal combinations. I would say over 80% do. And over 80% of players enjoy it. This kind of optimizing is part of the game, but it can cross a line to being exploitative, interfering with everyone else's fun. Setting clear expectations is essential when dealing with this kind of rules exploitation. Bear these principles in mind. Rules aren't physics. God, I'm so happy they put this in the game. I'm so happy they put this in this book. The rules of the game are meant to provide a fun game experience, not to describe the laws of physics in the world of D&D, let alone the real world. Don't let players argue that a bucket brigade of ordinary people can accelerate a spear to light speed by using the ready action to pass the spear to the next person in line. The ready action facilitates heroic action. It doesn't define the physical limitations of what can happen in a 6-second combat round. Holy crap, y'all. I mean, it's been said before, but it hasn't been said enough. This is them calling out a meme strategy that has been going around the internet and calling out its nonsense. That is what this is. It's the first time I've seen this happen in any like mainstream published TTRPG book. They're calling out a meme. They're calling out the peasant's railgun. That's what this is, which is a strategy you get by using a very loose interpretation of the rules by finding a loophole with the readied action. This is great. They call it out and they're like, don't do this. This makes no sense. Don't put this in your game. Don't allow this. They're saying don't. They're not like, hey, you might maybe not want to use. They're like, don't do this. That's not what the game is for. Which I completely agree with. Yeah, if there's some sort of weird spammy nonsense some player is bringing, it's okay to say no. The game is not an economy. The rules of the game aren't intended to model a realistic economy, and players who look for loopholes that let them generate infinite wealth using combinations of spells or exploiting the rules. Yep. Don't do that. Don't try to break the economy. I know it's a lot easier when you have tens of thousands of gold to use that to get all the cool magic items. Which is why they say like don't make magic item shops. But I think magic item shops are just too much. They're too much fun. But we can't break the economies of the game, right? The game is not an economy. It's not. Combat is for enemies. Some rules apply only during combat or while the character is acting in initiative order. Don't let players attack each other or helpless creatures to activate those rules. Yeah, this is another huge one. This is a huge exploit. This is a huge rule to say. This is a huge thing to say because it knocks out so many spammy, horrible things that players try to do in the game. One is like trying to cast Blade Ward every round outside of combat, or there are some characters that like get temporary health if they kill. Once they kill things, they get temporary health, like the one of those monk, the order of death or something like that. Monk, way of death. You get temporary health if you kill things, so they carried around a bag of rats. Don't do that. You know, this is them putting a rule down that says some things are combat things. Some rules only apply to combat. And true combat, not just killing a rat. If you fight true foes, that's what we're talking about. That's when these things apply. Rules rely on good faith interpretation. Yep. Yes. The rules assume that everyone reading and interpreting the rules has the interest of the group's fun at heart and is reading the rules in that light. Outlining these principles can hold players' exploits at bay. If a player persistently tries to twist the rules of the game, have a conversation with that player outside of the game and ask them to stop. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And then rules for the virtual table. This is kind of like, they talk a little bit about the digital environment, which really should be bigger, but they probably ran out of space. But this is all amazing. Chapter 1 is incredible. And they knocked it out of the park. They really did, because they talked about things that really need to be talked about. Another exploit I've heard is the polymorph exploit. That because temporary hit points don't go away until after a long rest, you can theoretically polymorph someone, and because the new polymorph spell gives you temporary hit points as opposed to making you that creature or giving you the hit points of the creature, now it just gives you a whole bunch of temporary hit points. You can polymorph yourself or someone else and then immediately drop concentration, and that person has a bucket load of temporary health with which to play with. That's obviously an exploit. Obviously. If you take one step back from the game and look at that, that's clearly not what's intended by the spell. So just approach the game with the idea that we're just using good faith interpretation of these rules. We're going to use common sense and not try to exploit the game. Yeah. Chapter 1 rocks. It's good work. That'll do it. Awesome. That'll do it for Tricks of the Trade. Thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate it. We don't have. 1 second. Let me go back to live. We only have one more thing happening, which is Thursday. No, sorry. Tomorrow is PvP. We have PvP tomorrow, which will be at 8 p.m. PT. That is a return to the Grand Coliseum of Port Nyanzaru with a Battle Royale format. We got some players who are going to duke it out with a winter solstice theme, so come watch that at 8 p.m. tomorrow. And then Thursday night, we will continue with our Thursday's Tomb of Annihilation with the group, and they have they've just defeated the Thayans in the heart of Ubtao. We're going to see what they do next. That'll do it for everybody. That'll do it for me for tonight. What up, Dr. Laser Falcon? Hello, buddy. I will see you all when we play again. I don't know what the next tricks of the trade. Maybe I'll just go into chapter 2. What's chapter 2? Chapter 2 is running the game. Yeah, we'll continue to go. I like doing this. This is awesome. Look at this. Look at this. It's Wenger. Oh wait, you're not seeing that. This is chapter 2. This is Wenger. This is like the oldest villain in D&D history, playing with a Tiamat. The fiendish villain Wenger uses a crystal ball to scry in his nemesis Tiamat. Look how rad that is. That is awesome. We'll end it there. I will see you cats next time. Come join us tomorrow for PvP, and come join us Thursday for Tomb of Annihilation. Peace out, everybody. Peace.